A game that I've been enjoying way too much is Dandara. This game is a Metroidvania with the most bizarre moveset, where you jump from wall to wall without walking and without gravity. I love the mechanics and combat and art and music and lore. By golly, it's an indie masterpiece! So what have you been doing, I'm sure you probably didn't ask? Well, I've been speedrunning it. I love speedrunning Metroidvanias. There are so many different ways to do it, and the run is never the same route, but they must always come to the same end. In this video, I'll be showing you the magic of the speedrunning routes taken in this game, and the game-breaking things done to beat this game as fast as possible. This is not a guide, and I don't suggest you treat it as one. If you want to take part in Dandara speedrunning, there's an official Discord server you can join and find the tips you need. So I think the best way to start this off is to take a look at the game's map. You start off at the Crib of Creation, and you must make your way to the Golden Fortress, where you'll find the final boss, Eldar. This map may look confusing, but it can be simply divided into just 5 distinct areas: the Village of Artists, Remembrance Desert, Intention Capital, Dream Realms, and Golden Fortress, in that order. Well, of course, it's supposed to be in that order. Each area has the respective item you get that allows you to go to the next, with the Stone of Creation, Rock of Remembrance, Stone of Intention, and Pearl of Dreams. That's simple enough to grasp. So, let's break it. Now, a regular speedrun still gets every one of those items, just not in the same order. The Stone of Creation allows you to jump extra far on certain platforms. You can't skip getting this item because you need it to get across this gap between the village and the rest of the map. This map is a one-way gap, and if you want to go back, you'll need to get the Stone of Intention, which you will need to go back in order to access the Dream Realms. The Rock of Remembrance in the Remembrance Desert allows certain platforms to move at your presence. This is required to get into not only the part of the Intention Capital where you get the Stone of Intention, but also to discover the camp inside the Golden Fortress, which is an important part of the run. It is possible to get past both of these locks, albeit very difficult and also requiring you to get Logic Blast, a weapon in the Intention Capital, to perform the trick, but even though it's difficult, it would still be faster, right? If you could get past having to go through the Remembrance Desert, a huge chunk of the game, to the end and back, and also skip having to fight the boss, Belia, in order to go back out of the desert, wouldn't that save a ton of time? Well, what if I told you that you can just warp out of the Remembrance Desert whenever you want? When you die in Dandara, you get sent to the last flag that you raised. These flags can be found by themselves, or will be raised when you reach a camp where you refill your energy and health, as well as upgrade your abilities with salts you find throughout the run. So if you were to raise the flag at the camp just outside of the desert, go to the desert without raising any other flags. This includes flags from camps, meaning that you won't be able to heal yourself, and then die, or most optimally use the return to flag option after you grab the Rock of Remembrance. Then you would have just skipped having to not only venture back to the other side of the desert, but also having to fight Belia as well. Even though you have to go through the desert without dying or healing, it's definitely worth it for the speedrun time. So now we just go to the Intention Capital, grab the Stone of Intention, go to the Dream Realms and grab the Pearl of Dreams, then make your way through the Golden Fortress, right? Maybe we were too quick to get ourselves out of the Remembrance Desert. There's a weapon that can be found in the Remembrance Desert called Memory's Shaft. When shot at a wall, this weapon sticks to it and sprays a line of sand outwards, harming not only enemies that crosses its path, but you as well. This weapon is broken. How broken? Let me show you just one thing it can do. That's right. With Memory's Shaft, you can clip through these purple flippers that are meant to flip around when you have the Stone of Intention. With this power, we can successfully skip the need of having to use the Stone of Intention to access the Dream Realms. Now, earlier I did mention that you needed the Stone of Intention to cross the gap needed to make it to the Dream Realms, but what we can do instead of death warping right next to the Remembrance Desert, we can death warp right next to the Dream Realms, letting us bypass the needing of the Stone of Intention. We use Memory's Shaft once again to completely bypass the whole Dream Realms dungeon, and would you look at that, we already have the Pearl of Dreams. What the Pearl of Dreams allows you to do is fast travel from one pre-discovered camp to another. And the way you use it to gain access to the Golden Fortress is to find this part of the barrier that has a hole in it and look at the camp through it. And since this camp is discovered, you can now fast travel to it and make it through the giant wall. Also note that it's been unfortunately confirmed that you can't jump through this hole in the wall. There's an invisible wall. So the next step is to head through the Golden Fortress, right? Unfortunately, no. This dungeon is littered with the purple flippers that require the Stone of Intention to go through, so we still need to make our way through the Intention Capital. But going back from the capital will be a lot quicker now that we have the use of the Pearl of Dreams. After getting the Stone of Intention, death warping to the last camp, taking a small detour around the capital to go to another camp, which I'll explain why I usually do this in my runs later, we warp into the Golden Fortress and start exploring the dungeon. Well, actually, let's just say there won't be much exploring. After opening up the main gate of the fortress that lets us easily access the camp, you head into the heart of the fortress into a hallway that requires you to explore 4 parts of the dungeon to flip 4 switches to access the boss. But just take a guess how many of these 4 parts a speedrunner explores. 1. And it's the shortest one at the end. But how in the world do you skip 3/4 of the dungeon? Well, take a guess on what item could possibly be broken enough to let you skip so much of the game. Take a guess! I've said it before and I'll say it again. Memory's shaft is broken. This switch needs to be shot from the other side, and when done allows you to access the switch that opens the dungeon up deeper. There are 3 of these switches, and the last one is a literal switch that requires you to stand on the other side of the wall. In order to skip these 3 switches, you're going to need to upgrade yourself to at least 9 hearts and 2 bars of energy, meaning that you will need a decent amount of salts to pay for it. After the very first dungeon, you're actually only 3 upgrades from what you need, but the upgrades get more and more expensive over time. This is the reason that I take that detour in the Intention Capital, to gather enough salts for these upgrades. Anyways, in order to do the skip, you shoot a memory shaft below you, let it rise you high enough to where you're in the switch, and shoot another memory shaft inside the switch and let it slowly destroying it during the death screen. This may seem difficult, but really it's actually incredibly consistent. Much better than the frame-perfect skip with the other memory shaft glitch. After venturing through the last section of the dungeon, which most things actually conveniently having gaps for you to jump around them, you find a camp and open the door to the final boss, Eldar, which means that this concludes the explanation of the route. This all comes to show what an interesting place speedrunning can be and how much they are willing to change up the game. I'm having a lot of fun speedrunning this, and I can't wait to find out what else will be discovered in this game. You never know, there could always be a new thing discovered. What is that? What was that? Ah! We're never going to be done routing this game, are we?
Goose.